You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 12th of January, 2026, on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Tom Edwards. Coming up on today's programme, we'll turn our focus to Venezuela and the latest from Caracas. Monocle's Ed Stocker has the story. Ed?
On today's briefing, I'll be looking at the oil companies in the US and whether they really will be investing in Venezuela. And also, I'll be looking at the plight of political prisoners.
More from Ed on the way in just a moment. Then Bloomberg's Ewan Potts will be with us to bring us the latest business headlines and a triumph of Brazilian cinema at last night's Golden Globes. Monocle's Fernando Augusto Pacheco has quite literally jetted in to tell us more about it. Hello, Faye.
And I'm very, very happy, Tom. What a night for Brazil's The Secret Agent. We will unpack this special moment for the country.
All that and more coming up for you here on The Briefing with me, Tom Edwards. A very warm welcome to you to this Monday edition of the programme wherever you are in the world. It is a show we shall begin in Venezuela, where the ousting of leader Nicolas Maduro by the United States has led to the release of political prisoners, many of whom were fierce critics of the former regime. Monocle's Ed Stocker is our Europe editor-at-large, and he's been following the story for us. Hello, Ed. How are you today?
Hello there, and I was very much enjoying your rolling of your R's just there. Very good.
Yes, exactly. I aim to please, Ed. I aim to please. Now, listen, before we talk about the release of those political prisoners I mentioned, let's actually check one of the latest lines. Donald Trump's meeting with the biggest US oil firms. There were some lines we might have expected out of that, and maybe some which were slightly more surprising. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Donald Trump on Friday afternoon, as we expected, given the importance he's given to oil in Venezuela, which, of course, has the biggest reserves in the world, meeting with all those huge US firms. At the moment, the only one actually operating in Venezuela is Chevron. Obviously, Donald Trump has made a big thing of this. He's talked about fixing up the oil. And, you know, he wants this $100 billion investment from these private companies in Venezuela. Obviously, production has reduced due to a lack of investment. But I guess what we may not have expected, or Donald Trump is certainly not expecting, is the sort of lukewarm reaction there has been to that. You know, we even saw the chief executive of Exxon saying that currently Venezuela is uninvestable. That's Darren Woods who said that. You know, these companies have been stung in the past. They've had assets seized over the course of years due to the instability in Venezuela. And so they fear that, you know, the country is still unstable, and so they worry about the bottom line as a result of that. Add to the picture, Tom, very briefly, the fact that Venezuelan oil is this heavy type of crude, which basically costs more to extract and treat. And so there are a lot of overhead costs involved in getting these vast reserves of oil, Tom.
Absolutely, Ed. Let's turn to the political prisoners. And again, I don't know whether this was all part of the grand plan, in as much as there even was one from Trump and his administration. But we have seen the release of political prisoners. What do we know?
We've seen the release of some, Tom, but a lot less than many were hoping for. That quote I mentioned a moment ago, Trump talking about fixing up the oil, that was a direct response to being asked by a reporter about the release of political prisoners. He has very much made oil the primary concern. I think really when we look at what's happened in Venezuela, on the 3rd of January, we saw these special troops landing in the country, taking Nicolas Maduro out of the country. And there were the big question marks over, well, is there going to be regime change? Is this going to be a whole new chapter for Venezuela? What are the intentions of the US? Will it be sending in land troops? Well, it hasn't done any of that. It's decided to work with the existing regime, if you want to call it that. Delcy Rodriguez, who is now in charge, was deputy to Maduro before. So at the moment, there hasn't been a huge amount of releases. We saw 9 on Friday, according to reports. And we've seen some further ones, which of course is positive, in the very early hours of this morning, around 20 or so. But they're thought, according to some estimates, Tom, to be around 800 or 900 political prisoners in the entire country. So if you look at it in that context, it is a bit of a trickle at the moment. Hopefully, over the next coming weeks, it will increase.
Well, yeah. Just do we think that is likely? Is it just a hope at this stage? I know some journalists have been a bit kind of closer to the source of the story. An aspiration. Do we actually think that there is a likelihood of that, Ed, or is it too soon to say?
I think it completely depends on the US and whether the US decides to make this a priority. At the moment, it hasn't. If there is political pressure from the US for there to be more release, I expect that to happen. Of course, Rodriguez is treading this strange and difficult line in the fact that she still needs to placate her party. She needs to placate, if you like, domestic politics, while also at the same time, she's denouncing what happened, but also trying to re-establish in some way relations with the US. You've had diplomats in the US looking about potentially reopening the embassy there that's been shut since 2019. And also Venezuela looking into the possibility of reestablishing diplomatic ties in Washington. So you have this sort of two different dialogues happening at the same time, which makes it quite hard to read what will happen.
It does indeed. Now, obviously, Ed, you lived and worked and reported from all across LATAM for Monocle for many years, hence why we're talking to you about this. But I did want to ask you about something a little closer to home for you right now. You're in Milan, of course, and some coverage in the Italian presses, which I think is quite interesting. This is about Alberto Trantini, this aid worker who was held without official charges. Tell me how that Trantini case is sort of being covered and what the discourse is around that, given what we've seen in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the European press here, as you would expect, talking about particular cases relating to their nationals. In the case of Italy, like you rightly said, Alberto Trantini, now 46, an NGO worker who has been released in the early hours of this morning. He was one of those 20 or so people released, along with another Italian, a businessman called Mario Borlò. He, was held for 423 days in Venezuela in a prison called El Rodeo. And he only managed to speak to his family around 3 times during his captivity. There was no official accusations against him. And so when you look at it, you think, oh, why was this person held? Were they a political prisoner? Strong suggestions that basically he was arrested to try and pressure Italy, used as leverage to recognize Venezuela of Maduro further, something, of course, which they didn't do. Obviously, the press here in Italy is just covering this as a very positive story. He's out of captivity. He's saying that he wasn't mistreated or tortured during his time. Apparently, the first thing he asked for was a cigarette. He wasn't allowed to smoke in prison. Classic Italian response there.
I was going to say that and thought that would be inappropriate. Great getting your insights, Ed, on this story. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you. Again, more in the days ahead from Milan. As you said, that was our Ed Stocker. Plenty going on around the world. Let's find out more about those other stories. We're crossing to Monocle Studio 5 in Paris. Standing by for us there is Anita Riotta with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Tom. At least 544 people have been killed as Iran enters its 3rd week of nationwide anti-government protests. U.S. President Donald Trump says his country is considering very strong options to intervene. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister said Tehran is ready to negotiate based on mutual respect and interests. The U.S. dollar continues to dip through morning trading in Europe. The slump comes as the Trump administration opens a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, heightening concerns about the independence of U.S. monetary policy. And in South Korea, Incheon's toll exemption policy for a new bridge has come under scrutiny for excluding foreign residents, raising questions about fairness and administrative consistency with different standards being applied to bridges within the same city. Those are the day's headlines from Studio 5 in Paris. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Anita. More news for you. The latest headlines at the top of the next hour, 1300 here in London. Time to look at the latest business stories. And actually, let's pick up on that story about the Trump administration and its pursuit of Jay Powell in the company of the one and only Ewan Potts of Bloomberg. Good afternoon, Ewan. How are you today?
Hello, Tom. Very good to speak to you.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Now, listen, it is a real dramatic ramping up, isn't it, in the battle between the White House and Jay Powell. Tell us what's been happening.
Now, there was a time many years ago when Monday was a bit of a struggle for business news. Nothing much happened over the weekend. But since a certain man entered the White House, there's always lots of things happening at the weekend. So we come into news. And this time it's news on the US central bank. You know, for decades, investors could be assured that the central bank was independent from politicians. But it really seems that the current resident of the White House is determined to bend the Federal Reserve to his will. Over the weekend, Fed Chair Jay Powell said that the US central bank had been served grand jury subpoenas from the Justice Department threatening a criminal indictment. Jay Powell says that the actions related to his congressional testimony back in June on the ongoing renovation of the Fed's headquarters, a multi-billion-dollar project, which President Trump is not happy with. But Powell says the move should be seen in the broader context of the administration's, quote, threats and ongoing pressure. Powell says this is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. Those are Powell's words. President Trump, for his part, in an interview yesterday, denied having any knowledge of the DOJ's investigation into the central bank. So this is a real war of words between these two men. It seems that Jay Powell is determined not to back down in the face of pressure from President Trump. Now, the dollar weakened on this news, but I think investors are really having to think through the implications of the central bank being perhaps pressured into lower interest rates than would otherwise be the case. And to be clear, low interest rates are a positive for many companies. But of course, the danger is that those low rates could let inflation creep higher than the Fed's target.
Yeah, that definitely one to watch you. And let's keep things stateside. We love a bit of retail. We love bricks and mortar here at Monocle, as you all know. And you've got a story, though, maybe somewhat concerningly, about the plight of the great American shopping mall, Ewan.
Yeah, America has a lot of shopping malls. In fact, according to one estimate per person, mall space is more than 12 times higher in the US than it is in the UK, France or Germany. That's one of the stats from the Financial Times today. They've got a fascinating deep dive on the plight of America's shopping malls. The country's home to about 900 of them, and the picture is really one of bifurcation, with the best doing very nicely and the worst ones really, really struggling. In fact, the top 100 account for about half of the sector's asset value. Many of the ones at the bottom are really doing so badly. Now, the rot really started to set in 2008 with the global financial crisis. That led to a sharp contraction in consumption. And then that was followed, of course, by the rapid ongoing rise in e-commerce, which, of course, has been lots of trouble for shopping centres. And that was turbocharged by COVID. Now, the rise in online shopping has been particularly devastating for department stores. And that is a big problem for the shopping malls, because traditionally their classic business model was built around a massive Macy's or a Sears department store. The anchor tenant incentivized them to come and everyone else would follow. But that business model just doesn't work anymore. So the malls are having to find ways to reinvent themselves. But for many of the least popular ones, their days are numbered, and demolition is the only way forward.
Great insights as always, Ewan. Thanks for that. Look forward to hearing from you again in the days and weeks ahead. That's Ewan Potts from Bloomberg joining us here on The Briefing. You're back with The Briefing on Monocle Radio with me, Tom Edwards, in the chair. Now, if you're anything like my next guest, then congratulations to you. But you'll probably stay awake overnight to watch the Golden Globes. Only this time, he was on a plane, travelling back to London, and landed to news of a triumph for Brazilian cinema, freshly returned from Sao Paulo. It's Monocle senior correspondent Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Welcome back, Faye.
And very, very fresh indeed, Tom. And I tell you not, so as soon as I landed in London, before telling my mum, I've arrived, I'm safe, I checked, did Wagner Moura won Best Actor? And he did.
Fernando, you're a man with warped priorities. I've said this to you before. You are looking very healthy. You're telling me there's a surprisingly unseasonal heat wave.
Absolutely.
Back in the motherland.
Everyone says, Fernando, you go to Brazil every December, it must be very hot. But I have to tell you, December in Brazil can be quite rainy, especially in São Paulo, where I'm from. So sometimes it's Christmas, it's about 20, 22 degrees.
But what was the mercury at this week, Fernando?
Well, it did hit 40 in Rio, and I was there just a few days ago. Even São Paulo, I think it reached like 36 or 37, which is quite high for the city.
And listeners, you can't see this because radio is an audio medium, but Fernando has caught the sun. I'm not going to ask him about his tan lines.
I'm wearing a white shirt as well.
Go on his Instagram, find out more. Right, let's get to the serious business. Wagner Moura, an actor who I love, of course, who's sort of gained international fame and notoriety from some of his most high-profile roles, but is a bit of a beloved stalwart of the Brazilian scene, and he's got the big prize this time.
He's got the big prize, and you know what, Tom? It's a very interesting moment for Brazilian cinema, because last year, we had I'm Still Here, the victory of Fernanda Torres at the Golden Globes, I think, which was a surprising moment, and the film won also Best Foreign Language at the Oscars. Even I thought, oh my God, that's a great. I mean, we can't really beat that. But it seems that this might happen because The Secret Agent won Best Actor Drama for Wagner Moura, as I said, and I want to talk about his speech in a bit. But it also won Best Foreign Language. So I think this increases the film's chances at the Oscars. The nominations are coming out next week. It's going to be a big deal.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you about, because I know I slightly flippantly said people are waiting up to watch the outcome of the Golden Globes. I know entertainment enthusiasts do take great note. Let's be honest, you're sort of armchair watcher are interested in the Golden Globes primarily as an indicator of direction of travel for the Oscars. That's still the big one. Is it one of these things where Wagner's, it's one of these ones like his I know they say they never do this, but it's final recognition for all of these great roles. What are you thinking?
I think it's a shoe-in, and I think the film has probably more of a chance to win Best Actor at the Oscars than Foreign Language. Because I've got to tell you, Tom, the one I was surprised was for the Best Foreign Language, because this year is a very competitive category. We have Sentimental Value by Joachim Trier, which I had the pleasure to interview. It's a great film, and I think it'll be nominated. We have It Was Just an Accident, the Iranian film, as well, that everybody's talking about. So the fact that The Secret Agent also won that award, I mean, it's incredible. The whole country is very, very proud of it. I was there, and even Globo, our main TV channel, for the first time, they broadcast the Golden Globe, so they knew something was going to happen. Because
Stitch up.
Maybe it was a stitch up. No.
Well, no, tell me, and what was in the tea leaves? Because I believe you interviewed Wagner Moura and the director Kleber Mendonça a little earlier. Did they? I don't know.
You did well, Tom.
I try my best. It's a tribute, if not a pastiche. When you were chatting to them, I don't know, I'm always interested in this. Do the protagonists know when they've got a proper hit and maybe gong recognition on their hands? Could you tell at the time?
I could tell. Kleber, I think he's very proud of that film. And of course, when I interviewed them, they won Cannes already for Best Director and Best Actor. So, I mean, so many awards. And it was such a pleasure doing this interview. And Wagner Moura, I know him since as a kid. He was a telenovela actor, Tom. And he was very friendly. So even after the interview, he was asking me questions. So tell me more, man. So you live here for how long? So, he showed some interest. And the only reason why we didn't play yet, there's something called embargo, Tom. The film's not out yet here in the UK, but don't worry, Monocle Radio listeners, the interview will be out very, very soon. That's all I can tell you.
And then on the front page of Folha de São Paulo, there's a brilliant picture of sort of Wagner clowning around, celebrating. He's youthful looking there, because I got used to him. He bulked up and he aged up to play... oh my God, my brain. Pablo Escobar.
Exactly. Pablo Escobar.
And so you kind of think of him, and he can play these guys who are old. I don't know how old he is, but he looks...
He looks cool.
He looks cool. He looks young. And he looks pretty happy.
For Narcos, he did have to get, gain a few kilos here and there.
Oh, he's brilliant.
And to speak Spanish, he didn't speak proper Spanish as well. He gave an interview, so he really went, all the way for this role.
Oh, well, I love him. Now, listen, you mentioned telenovelas there, and his sort of, the foundation stones of telenovelas in his career. A sad note, although it's a great moment for kind of Brazil on the silver screen and on the small screen, Manuel Carlos, one of the great telenovela writers, ripe old age, 92, he's passed away. Faye, just tell us a little bit about this character.
I'm glad I'm here paying tribute because Manuel Carlos is one of the most legendary telenovela writers in Brazil. And Tom, the thing about Manuel Carlos that if you showed a minute of the telenovela, you would know it's a Manuel Carlos telenovela because all of his telenovelas were set in Rio, in Leblon, a very specific neighborhood. So it's a, middle class, slightly upper class neighborhood. And every single of his telenovelas had one character called Elena. And they were very contradictory women. And you know what I liked about Manuel? And that's very special to me because today even the telenovelas are changing. They're a bit fast-paced. They got a lot of inspiration from series. But the dialogue. So Manuel Carlos let people speak for 10 minutes about family drama, about something, but it was really beautiful dialogue. And people loved it. It was a very specific portrait of a bourgeois Rio de Janeiro, but beautifully written, something that you almost don't see that today. So, Manuel, great man.
Fernando, a lovely tribute. Thanks for that. And thanks for illuminating us about Brazil's Golden Globes successes. And do mark your cards, listeners, as Faye said, to listen out for that interview with Wagner and Kleber coming soon here on Monocle Radio. And that is all we have time for on this edition of The Briefing, which was produced by Carlotta Rebello. Our researcher was Annalise Maynard, and our studio manager was Mariella Bevan. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow noon in London. From me, Tom Edwards, and the Monday team, goodbye and thanks for listening.